Welcome back to Perkins Pipes. Why do I have a rather odd color scheme going on with the red and the yellow? Why have I brought out the beautiful crimson red bent billiard Chacom pipe? Well, let me just say it has to do with the Scarlet Speedster. It has to do with the Crimson Comet. And if you know what that means, then you know what this episode's going to be about. And if you don't, get ready to have some fun. Folks, as always, let's get this guy lit. Let's get to talking. Now, I say, those of you who know, you know. Whenever you don't, then my talk about the Crimson Comet, the Scarlet Speedster, let me tell you, I can only be talking about one person. DC Comics superhero, The Flash. Oh boy, is this going to be a fun episode. Got so much cool stuff to show you here, too. Kind of getting my materials here ready to go. So, I'm going to be doing a short series of videos over comic book superheroes, my favorites at least. It's not going to be sequential, not going to do, 4 in a row or something, but over the next few weeks or so here, we'll see several of these. I'm going to start off with my all-time favorite superhero, The Flash, who's noted for his red and yellow color scheme. So, that's what that's all about. I remember the first... I don't know if it's the first comic book I ever got. It may be. Maybe the first superhero comic book I ever got. But I was visiting my maternal grandmother, my Grandma C. Last name was Carlisle. In the southern India city of Scottsburg. And we went out to Hook's drugstore. And there they had the comic rack. Spin it around. And this comic caught my attention. The Fastest Man Alive, The Flash. Issue number 279. And it has this rather creepy looking guy on the front. By the way, advertisement on the back, the Daisy 840. I had that as a boy. And he says, there's no way I can break loose from this psychic freak, and he's going to continue draining the life energy from my body until I die. What's that all about? This particular comic book it was partway into the story of this madman named Clive Yorkin. And he had the ability, he would clamp onto people, and in their fear, he would suck in their fear, and that's how he would feed and grow stronger. This is my first ever Flash comic. And it had a story by Cary Bates. He was a longtime writer of The Flash. And it says, now this is Dick Giordano who did the cover. Famous illustrator of Flash. And the pencils inside, the art inside, was by Alex Saviuk. So I read this, got hooked immediately, and I'm going to come back to some of the comics in a moment. Got hooked immediately, started buying the other comics around number 279 to kind of build up that whole storyline. And back in the day, you could subscribe to comics. So I had several comic subscriptions, and I certainly subscribed to The Flash, and then I'm getting The Flash every month. And, oh, man, I'm just loving this guy. Along the way, I didn't have my comics anymore, all right? They were gone. And then my son came along. And so as he was getting young boy and getting a little bit older, I said, well, we'll get back into comics. So we went out to some comic store, and that's where I found the Flash 279, my original. Oh boy, was I excited. Found number 278, which I distinctly remember having, the one right before that one. Let's see what else here. I remember this one. We managed to find this one, number 292. That's him, the Flash versus the Mirror Master. 292. 295, I distinctly remember that one. Flash versus Gorilla Grodd, the Super Simian. Found an older one, number 231. Involved the Green Lantern in it as well. And you've got the Flash's rogues gallery of villains. You've got the top here in the green yellow. You've got Heat Wave there in the white. You got Mirror Master. You got Weather Wizard. And you got Pied Piper. And so you got all these guys. So we managed to find those that I remembered from my collection. We managed to get this, which is a really neat one, the Flash Chronicles, which has a whole bunch of reprints of Flash comics, including, if I'm not mistaken, the very first Flash, The Mystery of the Human Thunderbolt. Let's hold that the right way there. Tells the origin story of the Flash. And then I did find something I actually had from back in the day. I bought this back when I was in college, The Greatest Flash Stories Ever Told. It's a hardback book. And it also had some reprints of early Flash comics. Then my son got into Flash, and in an earlier episode, I showed you a couple of the action figures that I got of my son, Flash, and the Reverse Flash, who was his arch nemesis. I remember being so excited when Lego came out with the mini figure of the Flash. There he is. Boy, can't see him, can you? He's really fast. And what's cool is his cowl comes off here. So you can take that off and put that back on him. So my son got that. And I thought that was really, really cool. I thought, man, I wish they had that when I was a boy. Then we managed to find somewhere the complete series of the television show The Flash, the one that came out in the early 1990s, I think, 1990, 1991. And then one with John Wesley Shipp playing the Flash. Now, this is the complete series. Has all the different discs in there, as you can see. Then, of course, some of you may know, here in the 2000s, The Flash came out as a television series on the network called the CW. And we watched it all the time. Oh man, were the graphics good in this thing. We ended up grabbing the first, I believe we got the first 3 seasons of this one on Blu-ray. So super, super excited about this. What has been my fascination with the Flash for, I don't know, 40, 45, 50 years? I don't know. I really don't remember when I first picked up that first comic, how old I was. Well, first of all, and I don't know, just pick one here. These guys are just cool, all right? And you say, wait a minute, there's multiple Flashes there. Well, the Flash originated back in the 40s with this one, what we call the Silver Age of comics, and the real-life guy was a guy named Jay Garrick. Lived on an Earth, on a parallel universe called Earth 2. Then the classic kind of Flash that, from I think the 60s, 70s, 80s onward was this guy, and this is the guy I grew up with, Barry Allen, police scientist Barry Allen. And man, I've got his origin story just burned in my brain. He's working late one night in the police lab. Lightning bolt shatters a shelf full of chemicals. They get electrified. It goes all over him, and it endows him with super speed. Then comes his nephew, Wally West. He ends up marrying Iris West, who was a reporter for the Central City newspaper, and this is his nephew, Wally West, and he becomes Kid Flash. And I think there's things I loved about the Flash, and things I really always enjoyed about DC Comics in particular. There seemed to be a realism in the obvious fantasy world. This guy was a police scientist, and there was, chemicals, and it seemed like something that could have happened. Okay, it didn't seem like magic, but it seemed like it was something kind of grounded in reality. And this freak accident, he's always trying to reduplicate it, never could never find the right exact combination of chemicals and electricity to create super speed again. And so it's kind of grounded in reality. Obviously, I think the costumes are really, really cool, especially for a young boy. Oh, wow, that red and yellow and the blur. And he got the cool names, right? This Crimson Comet, the Scarlet Speedster, the fastest man alive. And what kid doesn't want that? The other thing I've always thought was the Flash's powers were somehow realistic because I could run around the backyard, right? I could run around the neighborhood. Anybody can run. And so his powers, Superman can't really fly. Now, you can tie a blanket around your neck and you can jump off the back of the sofa and pretend to fly, and that's pretty cool. But with the Flash, you could really feel as if you were the Flash because you can run around, like I say, run around your neighborhood. And then there were all the cool things that he could do related to his super speed. For example, my favorite thing I think that he could do, it would appear that he could run on the air. In fact, if there was a burning building, the pieces of the building are falling down, the Flash could run so fast that his foot would just touch, just briefly, each of the falling pieces, and it would look like he was running out the falling pieces of a building to save whoever was inside. And he could time travel, and he could vibrate his hands super fast so it would actually go through solid objects. Thought that was really cool. I also like the fact, I got to be honest, especially a kid in junior high, I like the fact that he was married. The Flash was married. What you didn't get a lot of, the Green Lantern, we'll be talking about him later, had a longtime girlfriend, Carol Ferris. There was always the never quite made it together kind of relationship between Clark Kent and Lois Lane. Batman, of course, had to hide his identity and all that kind of stuff. And so I don't know. I think there's something, again, kind of realistic about the Flash being married. Of course, he had to hide his identity because he never wanted his wife to, for bad guys to find out who he really was and maybe try to hurt him by hurting his wife. Although it did happen. Shortly after that 279 issue, the Flash's wife did die. His archenemy, Reverse Flash, came back from the 25th century and found a way and actually killed Iris West Allen. And that was a whole train of stories and so forth. So I have just loved the Flash. I love the stories. And it's funny because when our son was really little and just starting to get into stuff, but I would read the comics to him. And I realized they were better than I remembered. In fact, what I really noticed was that the language was actually rather elevated. Now, we're not talking Shakespeare here. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Well, there are some pretty clever plot devices, some pretty good use of language, plays on words. This is actually some intelligent writing. And so I realized there was a lot more to this than I'd remembered. So, my friends, I'm excited to introduce to you my absolute favorite comic book superhero of all time, The Flash. What do you know about The Flash? Did you ever read? Did you ever watch the shows of The Flash? Did you like The Flash? Were there other superheroes that you really, really enjoyed? Like I say, we're going to be talking to some others in upcoming episodes. Anyhow, would love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Folks, as Malcolm Guite likes to say, I do these little things in order at last to do nothing. Or as I like to say in Latin, Parva ago ut tandem, nihil agam. Have a wonderful day.